Thanks for tuning in to the third episode of Generation Hope. Just a quick note before the episode starts, today's interview took place over the phone, as Sophia is currently serving in an area without Wi-Fi. So the quality of the audio may be a little different than what you're used to, but despite that, this is a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to Generation Hope, a podcast by connect.faith. I'm Callie Bronkema, and I'm looking for stories of hope in the lives of young adults. This season, we're hearing from people who are just starting out their professional careers in education, healthcare, and other service fields when we were hit with a global pandemic. Today, I am joined on the phone by Sophia Maldonado, who is a recent graduate from Amherst College and a current member of the Americorps program. Sophia, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Callie.
So let's start with the basics. Can you tell us a little bit about AmeriCorps and the program that you're in?
Yeah, so AmeriCorps is a big national service organization. You can be involved in AmeriCorps when you're at any age, but most of the programs are for people from about 18 to in their late 20s, especially the branch that I'm a part of, which is called AmeriCorps NCCC, which stands for National Civilian Community Corps. And basically, AmeriCorps NCCC sort of evolved out of the CCC, if you've heard of that program, which it was really focused on like outdoor, hands-on physical service work across the country. So now AmeriCorps NCCC today is basically, like I said, it's a service program for people from 18 to 26 years old, and it's basically 10 months of service, and you're working on a team of your peers, traveling around the country, partnering with different nonprofit organizations to do meaningful work with communities in need.
That sounds very important, especially right now. There's a lot of communities in need right now.
Yeah.
So let's go back to March, and you're in your last semester of college and looking forward to graduating, and then COVID-19 hits, and you have to return home. And what are you thinking at that point?
It was like the worst nightmare that I never even knew I had, you know. It was like no one could have expected that. I don't think that was like something that anyone was planning for, especially in our last semester of college after we'd come so far. It was really upsetting. It was really hard to leave, and especially not knowing like when we would be able to come back. And of course at that time we had sort of planned on returning in 2021 to do our in-person commencement, but of course things are still being pushed back today, so we still don't really know when we'll be able to go back. And at Amherst College, at where I graduated from, they are having some students do in-person classes, but it's very different from how it used to be, and you know, no one's allowed to visit or anything. So yeah, I haven't been back there since March.
Yeah, I remember seeing all of like social media posts from all of my friends in your grade, and everybody's trying to, you know, say goodbye to people one last time and get the pictures that maybe they had never thought to take of the gates on their campus or the arches or something.
I had this bucket list actually that I had for my 4 years of college, and there was still a bunch of things on it that I hadn't gotten to do. So that last week, like we had, I think, exactly a week from when we found out to when we had to leave, and I was just like frantically trying to cram in as much as possible.
Yeah, finish that bucket list. So when back in March, were you already thinking about maybe Americorps is the way to go, or what were you planning on doing once you graduated?
So I had applied to AmeriCorps before I left Amherst, and it was sort of like one of the first jobs that I had applied for, so I wasn't sure if it would end up being the one that I wanted to do in the next year, but it ended up working out really well because a lot of the other jobs I was thinking about applying for were either not hiring anymore or were working remotely or something like that. So,
Right.
so AmeriCorps ended up being sort of the perfect option for me at this time because I know a lot of people in my year who had just graduated are still having trouble looking for jobs. And it's also a really great opportunity to be going out into communities and doing in-person hands-on work, as dangerous as that can be sometimes. It's really fulfilling and like empowering to be able to be actively doing something in this time when so many people in our country are struggling.
Yeah. So you mentioned it was almost like the perfect scenario for you in that it was a hands-on opportunity, which was something you were looking for in a time where very few hands-on opportunities exist. But did you have any sense of hesitation knowing that you're joining mission work that would require you to be in close contact with people, require you to be away from home? Obviously, we're not looking at each other right now because you don't have Wi-Fi where you are. Did that cause any hesitation when you were deciding whether or not to join?
Yeah, definitely a little bit of hesitation. I remember right after I got accepted, I joined this Facebook group with all the other people who had gotten accepted, like they have for college, and a lot of people in the group were talking about that and like asking people if they were still going to go because COVID was still, pretty bad. I ended up flying down to Mississippi in July, so it was still sort of a frightening thing to do, and especially not knowing how long we'd have to be away from home. If we'd have, in a normal year, you'd have time to take weekends off or take some trips to go see your family if you wanted to. And we weren't even sure if we'd have a winter break halfway through the program. So it was definitely a hard decision. But in the end, I just knew I would be happier out in the world doing something than sitting at home watching things happen.
Yeah. How did your family react to your decision? Were they mostly excited, a little nervous, or were they really feeling the nerves at that point?
I know my mom was definitely nervous. And I remember just like as she was preparing me to get onto the plane, it was like, here, take a box of like 50 gloves and 20 different masks and wipes and things like that, because we just couldn't imagine like getting on a plane with all these people from around the country and the world. But they were, ultimately excited that I had the opportunity to do this kind of work that I was really excited about. And at the end of the day, it's just a 10-month program, so I'll be back at home in no time.
So, what originally drew you toward AmeriCorps? Was this, were you studying at school something along the lines of the program that you're in right now, or was it almost like a deeper desire for you to just do a little bit of service before you jumped into the career adult world? What originally drew you toward the program?
Mm-hmm. Probably a little bit of both. I think I am just in general trying to figure out a way to do as much service as a career as possible. So, this is a lot of people who are in my program right now have either just graduated from high school or just graduated from college and are taking sort of a gap year. And I like to think of this less like a gap year and more of like the first year of my career in service. And so, although of course I can't stay in this program forever, I do sort of want this to be like the beginning of more work like this. And I know I was especially drawn toward this program this particular branch of AmeriCorps compared to the other ones, because of all of the outdoor work that we get to do. We've gotten to work on farms and on trails, and we've done home repair and construction and things like that, which is something that I've had a little bit of experience with before, but I just don't know of many other opportunities that allow you to try so many like different types of work that are maybe less traditional for a lot of people who are coming out of college.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing then? You mentioned you're outside and you started in Mississippi. Where has this journey taken you, I guess, geographically, but also what exactly have you been doing in each place that you've been to?
So after our first month of training and quarantining in Mississippi, we were split up into our teams, and usually our teams are about 8 to 12 people, give or take a few, including one team leader who's sort of in charge of the group. So we first went to Washington, D.C., and we were living in Alexandria, Virginia, but mostly working in D.C. with the Salvation Army. So that was our first project, and we were there for 8 weeks, which is like the longest that you'll ever be at any place. So that was really nice in terms of the area is amazing. There were a lot of opportunities for us to get out and explore the city. And so the work that we were doing with the Salvation Army was less typical of our program. We were mostly doing office work and working inside and doing some like building maintenance for them. So I was actually working on their Angel Tree program, which is the program they have every year that matches low-income families with sponsors who provide the kids with Christmas presents. I was supporting them with their online database, which they had to create this year because of COVID. They couldn't do registrations and things like that in person. So right off the bat, it was like not exactly the kind of work that I had signed up to do, but it ended up being kind of a cool learning experience anyway, because I got to use my Spanish skills, this is like the first time that I've really been able to use Spanish in like a professional setting. They had me calling people on the phone to talk to them about their applications, which was, something that I've always been like afraid of, but I ended up, really improving in that area.
I know a lot of people have hesitancy with the Salvation Army because as much good as they do, they've also been accused numerous times of being discriminatory towards the LGBT community in terms of the donations that they make, in terms of who the cases that they select to help. Was there any discomfort that you could tell in your team or with you personally with working with an organization that has a history of discrimination like that?
That's actually like the first reaction I had when I heard we were going there, because that is pretty much all I've heard about the Salvation Army is criticism and things like that. So I was hesitant going in, and also because the Salvation Army is actually a church, so it's not like a secular nonprofit like a lot of the other organizations we work with. It's actually run by priests, and all of their officers are part of this church organization, which is something that made some of us feel a little uncomfortable. But we were also working with people in the Salvation Army that weren't affiliated with the church side of things at all. So I would say after 8 weeks of working with them, it's I think in organizations like the Salvation Army that are so large, like just mind-blowingly, are in charge of so many different projects. There are so many people working for that organization that are really trying to do good and help people, and that's the part that's important for me about it. I don't think, there are organizations out there, and I'll talk about this a little more, that like their sort of mission and their just like their character and the general atmosphere sort of resonates more with me. But I think at the end of the day, I would just try to separate like as much as I can the work that they're doing from the maybe the people in charge.
It sounds like it was an experience that you might not necessarily agree with a lot of the high-level decisions that have been made, but you were put in an opportunity where you knew you could positively impact just a small group of people, whether it's through, you mentioned the Christmas present giving projects you were doing, or maybe food distributions, and so you kind of said, I can help those people, let me do that, and go forward from there. Yeah, so tell us where you worked next.
We went to southern Louisiana for 6 weeks. We were working in Lafayette and Lake Charles, and there we were partnering with Rebuilding Together and Nahama, the Jewish Disaster to Response. And those were technically 2 separate projects. We had initially been scheduled to go to West Virginia during that time, but then we got pulled to go out for disaster to help them with hurricane relief. So we spent about the first 4 weeks we were with Rebuilding Together, and we were basically doing tarping and debris removal. And then for the last 2 weeks in Louisiana, working with Nahama, we were doing a lot of mucking and gutting and deconstruction projects. So we would go into houses that had been damaged and basically take out all of the personal belongings, and then start taking out, depending on the house and the situation, we would take out the walls, the floors, ceilings, basically just gut the house so that they can go back in and put in new materials that are not covered in mold. So after Louisiana, we went to North Carolina for 2 weeks, and that's the last project, the most recent one that we've done right before winter break, and it was my favorite project because we were working on an educational farm called the Hub Farm in Durham, North Carolina, and basically it's this, I think it's like 30 acres, I might be wrong about that, I think it's 30 acres of land owned by the Durham Public School System that this organization called Hub Farm is now on, and they have created trails, and they have some livestock, and they have a garden and all sorts of things that they use sort of as educational tools for the schools, for the students at the local schools. And the farm is located right in between the elementary school and the middle school and the public library, so they have a lot of programs with the students there. Unfortunately not now due to COVID, but we were helping them with, maintenance, and we built a few trails, we built a blueberry patch, and a lot of other exciting stuff that the kids will get to see soon, hopefully.
That's so cool, because I feel like a lot of the times those extra resources go to private schools or charter schools.
Yeah.
So it's awesome that, the public school system is benefiting from this more holistic view of education. That's really cool. Would you say that the experience you've had so far with AmeriCorps is what you expected? Like, are you getting out of it what you expected to get out of it, or have there been surprises or letdowns along the way?
I think I am getting everything out of the program that I expected to get out, and also there have been some surprises and letdowns along the way. I think it's more challenging than I expected to live and work with a team of your peers and be around them 24/7. It's kind of like your job never ends, really. The program has us doing like a lot of work outside of our work hours, so that's something that I didn't really expect going in. Like, everyone gets assigned a role on their team, and I'm the community relations representative. So in addition to like the 40 plus hours a week we're working, I also have to like do social media posts and make videos and like all this stuff that I didn't think I would be doing, which is giving me good experience, but it's just it's very tiring, and there's not as much like alone time and or recreation time as I would have hoped. But I would say overall it's a challenge, and I think it's really going to pay off when the program ends and I go back to the real world and I don't have to live with my coworkers. And I think it's like one of those experiences that's really really tough in the moment. And there are a lot of like really great moments along the way, and like really cool experiences, really cool people that we get to work with. I'm glad I'm doing it, and I think I'll also be glad to be done with it in May.
I'm very interested by what you said about you work 40 hours and then, you're each assigned this role to continue the experience after those 40 hours of, regulated labor, I guess. Would you, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, like it's almost hard to create a healthy work-life balance, like creating that boundaries to still have personal time. Would you say that's right? Yeah.
Definitely. Especially when we're working on disaster, we were working 6 days a week. And in some of our places, like when we were in North Carolina, I loved the project, but we didn't have laundry or showers in our in the church that we were sleeping in. So it ended up eating up like 3 hours every night just to go like drive over, everyone take a shower, drive back. And it is, I think that's the hardest part of the program. Honestly, like the physical labor and all that was probably the most intimidating part for me coming in, but that extra stuff makes a difference.
Yeah, I was talking with another interviewee about the expectation that I feel like was put on this generation that you have to do everything 110%. Like I feel like we got that from like even Disney Channel movies that we would watch when we were younger. Like the message was, if you put 110% into everything, if you put everything that you are, you will get rewarded. And I wonder, that we're out of college and starting our careers, that message of, your break time isn't important because you need to have everything great and perfect, or at least, even if it's not perfect, you have to know that you put everything you had into it. And that creates such a toxic personal life experience. And we're seeing studies that our generation has some of the highest statistics in anxiety and depression. And it does make me wonder what would have happened if instead of stressing, work your hardest all the time, if we had been told, work your hardest 8 hours a day, and then figure out some hobbies and meditation techniques and, take some time to decompress. Do you feel like the sense because you said you're working with people who are all like within 4 or 5 years of you, do you see that within your group, this need to just work as hard as you can all the time? And is that being perpetuated by just the nature of your program that you're in?
Yes, is the short answer. So I started out on a team of 10 people, and we are now down to 5 people. A couple of those left due to medical issues, but a good number of them just left because they were too stressed out all the time and didn't feel like they were getting the support that they should have been. And so I definitely think that is an issue, and not just in this program, but like you were saying, in most experiences that we've been that we've had as our generation. And I think it's really unfortunate, and it's probably the one like negative part of this experience, which is sad because, you know, I'm sure everyone that signed up for this program wanted to leave at the end of the 10 months feeling really energized and like grateful and glad that they had joined. And I just don't think that, you know, I think that a lot of people aren't even making it through the 10 months, let alone coming out of it with that feeling. So that's upsetting.
Yeah, I feel like burnout is something that we're seeing more and more often as a really big problem. And I'm hopeful for you that you can take this experience and learn. I mean, it took me a whole year of working to learn I should probably make some boundaries for myself. And when I'm bored, I shouldn't just go do more work. I should find something more exciting and that to do with my free time. Yeah. So I'm hoping this gives you that life experience on how to create healthy boundaries to enter a new form of the workforce.
Yeah. I have to say, not having Wi-Fi has been really great for that. I've been reading a lot more and just in general, like in the free time I have, trying to do as many offline activities as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like I turn to Netflix way too often, and I wonder if would I be, you know, the greatest baker in the world by now? I don't know.
Maybe.
What would you say if the program was only 6 months long and you were done now? What would you walk out of this experience? What would be in the front of your mind walking out of this experience?
Oh, I have been thinking about that because I sprained my ankle a few days ago, and I'm like not, you know, if it doesn't heal quickly, I might have to leave. And I guess if this was the natural conclusion of the program and I was going home, I think the positive would sort of rise to the top here for me because, you know, looking back on all we've done, I'm mostly just thinking about the amazing people that I've met that are working at all of these nonprofit organizations. For example, when we were in Louisiana, we started working with a couple of people who were actually AmeriCorps alumni, and they were telling us about all the work they had done since AmeriCorps after they graduated, and just right in that moment, we had just started doing this work. We were like 2 weeks in, and they had already been there for like 3 months, working 6 days a week, doing like incredibly physically demanding work, just because they felt like called to do it. So I think that like I've really been inspired by those kinds of people that we've been able to work with who have actually dedicated like more than 10 months to doing this, you know, who have dedicated their careers to service.
You said at the beginning of the interview that something that originally drew you toward AmeriCorps was your desire to keep working in service fields after the program had ended. Do you feel this program is helping you discern what path to take going forward?
Yes. Yeah, I feel like I just feel like because of the nature of the program, I've been exposed already halfway through. I've been exposed to a lot of different kinds of work, even if they're all, you know, sort of related in a way. Just the physical day-to-day stuff that I've been doing has varied a lot. So I think that's been really helpful for me in figuring out the kind of work that I enjoy and want to continue.
Yeah. So you've described a scenario that has a lot of pros, some cons, but is definitely tiring. And like you said, a few people, whether it be from injuries, injuries or burnout. So what makes you keep going?
I think part of it is honestly just like the fact that I made this commitment. Like, I want to see it through, and I want to, I don't want to walk away from something that I could potentially be getting more, more skills, more experience, more whatever out of. And I do feel like there is more to be gotten out of it. I'm also really excited for our next project. We're going to Georgia, and we're going to work at a camp with the Boys and Girls Club. So I think that's going to be awesome.
So I asked you to be on this podcast because I was very impressed that in the middle of all this chaos, you said, let me go help some people, and sacrifice being with your family and sacrifice Wi-Fi because you felt called to go help. So I think a lot of people will find hope from your story, but I ask everyone at the end of this podcast, what do you hope for going forward?
Right now, I'm hoping that all of the people who are in my position or similar positions, in this phase of life, I hope we can be given a little bit of space and time and, kindness and a little breath to try to find things that we love doing, and that give us a reason to keep working and to keep, applying to jobs. And I hope for a little more time in the day to rest.
Thank you so much for joining me, Sophia. I wish you all the best of luck for the rest of your program, and I wish for good healing for your ankle, because I'm really glad that you're excited about this next phase of the program that you're about to go on. So good luck with all of that.
Thank you.
And you've been listening to Generation Hope by connect.faith. I'm Callie Bronkema, and I hope you enjoyed.